My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 91, Declaration of Allegiance. Where are the weapons in the carriage? And this is a gold tier weapon. It should be a gold tier weapon, right? The guards of the caravan cried out in surprise. That was the first time they had seen such a method. Well, to be more precise, it was the first time they had heard of it. A gold tier forger would have to spend dozens of days to forge a gold tier weapon. However, Watson only waved his hand and said that it was a forging technique. They did not believe it at all. It was even more convincing to say that it was magic. Alan, this weapon is now yours, along with the thousands of gold coins in the carriage. Watson waved his hand. Alan, who had been waiting impatiently, immediately walked to the side of the carriage. He picked up the glove and wore it. In an instant, the glove had locked onto his skin. As Alan looked at the glove on his right hand, he realized that he could not put it down, especially when the glove had changed from a gorgeous gold-red color to an inconspicuous dark gold color. It even moved according to his will. He liked it even more when he realized that its pattern had been hidden from sight. He praised his young master's generosity repeatedly, though he was not excited about the gold coins. Everyone, stop the training for a moment. Listen up, I am a person who can differentiate between rewards and punishments. Alan has made a great contribution, so he deserves such a reward. You should also learn from him and work hard to improve your strength. Watson's words were directed at the guards on the training field. Yes, young Master Watson. The Blackmoon Knights on the training field put their weapons down and stepped forward in unison, their shouts could almost shake the sky. They looked at Alan with envy. They might not appreciate silver tier equipment, but gold tier equipment was different. It was equivalent to dozens of silver tier equipment. If they had gold tier equipment and they had to face a silver tier warrior, their enemy might not be able to break through their defenses in a year. Alan, are you satisfied with my reward? Watson turned around and asked. He was satisfied with everyone's enthusiasm. Yes, I'm very satisfied. Alan was about to say that he was extremely satisfied. However, when he thought about the guards that Zeke and Zenoa had brought with them, he wanted to protect his honor as the captain of Blackmoon Castle Guards. He coughed and said, Young Master Watson, I'm very satisfied. I swear that I will continue to work hard and not let you down. Watson grunted and deliberately looked behind Zeke and Zeke. Then he said, Third brother, fourth brother, these people are. They are the guards we recruited in Monty Town. Some of them are bronze tier warriors, especially Lucas, who is reaching the silver tier soon. We wanted to get them out of Monterey Town and come to Blackmoon Castle to serve as guards. Well, it seems like the Blackmoon Knights are strong enough now, so maybe we don't need them anymore. Zeke saw through Watson's hint and said, Why don't I give them some money and let them leave the castle? Yes, it doesn't look like we'll need them. Right now, there are 50 Blackmoon Knights in the castle, and the weakest one is ranked silver tier. If they are only at bronze tier, then they won't be of much help to us. Watson looked troubled. 2 months ago, they had only 2 silver tier guards in Blackmoon Castle, Alan and List. However, most of the guards had advanced to silver tier, and Alan had almost broken through that. They could defeat everyone at the border, except for the border count. Plus, the mages at the castle had also reached the silver tier, they had managed to do that with Watson's help. Even Nindy had mastered 2 silver tier spells, the Water Elemental Warrior Summon and the Mine Cannonball. Apart from their hard work, they had also been eating Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs daily and received training techniques from Nightingale. The guards in the castle did not need any silver tier equipment. Instead, they desired gold tier equipment so that they could use it when they broke through to that level one day. As for the people that Zeke had brought with him, Watson had told them the truth. He kept some of the information to himself. The standard of his Blackmoon Knights had hit the maximum level. It would not be easy for the guards to advance to gold tier in a short amount of time. Therefore, he cared about quality. He did not intend to say those words out loud. He should have maintained the dignity of a leader in front of his subordinates. He had to show that he did not care about those people and make them nervous to earn their loyalty. Sure enough, Lucas and the caravan guards were nervous when they heard what Watson had said. If they had not seen Blackmoon Castle's strength and Watson's godly skill of fusing gold-tier weapons, they might have left in a fit of anger. However, they wanted to be stronger and to have the standard to say that silver-tier equipment was trash. They wanted to be like Alan, who single-handedly wiped out an entire bandit gang, and they wanted to hold their head high in front of their companions. Young Master Watson, even though our strength is quite average currently, we can train very hard. I may only be a bronze-tier warrior now, but I am confident that I can keep up with everyone's pace in Blackmoon Castle. Lucas paused for a moment. He did not ask Watson to let him stay. However, the other guards nodded and said the same thing. Captain Lucas is right. We'll work hard. Hard work is the best talent. Give us a few years, and we can become stronger. If we can't, we can do chores that don't require much strength. After all, we can't go back to Monty Town anymore. Zeke thought that it was enough. He said, Watson, these people have protected us. If it weren't for them, we might not even be alive to meet with Alan. Zenoa also said, yes, Watson. Why don't we keep them? All right. For the sake of my two brothers, I will accept you reluctantly. Watson gestured toward the guards in front of him. From now on, you are members of Blackmoon Castle. I will have the maidservants draw up a contract for you later. You must follow our orders strictly and learn from your seniors. If you don't perform well, then I will still kick you out. Do you understand? Yes, young Master Watson, we understand. Lucas and the others looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. The clever ones took the opportunity to kneel on one knee toward Watson to declare their loyalty. An hour had passed since they accepted Lucas and the other guards. Watson handed the distribution of the standard equipment and the other matters to Alan. Then, he brought his two brothers to the bathroom in the castle. The reconstructed bathroom was even more spacious than before. The pool had warm vapor that rose out of it as Watson and his two brothers laid on the jade platform. They were shirtless as they enjoyed the massages that a maid in a towel had given them. Watson saw his brother's reaction. He knew that they were aroused. Well, I guess there is a benefit to being young. At least I won't have to deal with any arousal for now, and I won't make a fool out of myself like this, Watson muttered to himself. Then, he said softly, third brother, fourth brother, you guys haven't had a pleasant time in Monty Town these past 2 months, right? Did the people from the Mage Guild make things difficult for you? I don't even want to talk about that. If it weren't for Lord Carter from the Good Luck Caravan and Lord Reynolds from the Wind Journey Caravan, we might have already been captured by those people from the Mage Guild. We haven't had the opportunity to touch any women for the past few days, we've been hiding here and there. Zeke glanced at the cute maid behind him as he recounted what had happened in Monty Town. Zeke said, there's actually nothing to say about that. Watson, tell us about the changes in Blackmoon Castle over the past 2 months. How did you manage to develop this place so quickly? Faced with the burning and curious gazes of his two older brothers, Watson smiled and cleared his throat. This matter started 2 months ago. Chapter 92, Wealth that could rival a city. 2 months ago, Watson had defeated more than 10 manors. When the other manors nearby heard the news, they sent people to deliver generous gifts to Blackmoon Castle. There were hundreds of manors of all sizes at the border, and Watson had only eliminated more than 10 that had infuriated him. What about next time? After they learned about Blackmoon Castle's strength, the surrounding manors fell into a panic. They feared they would become the next cornerstone of Blackmoon Castle's expansion. More than 50 manor owners had sent gifts, and they were all very generous as the gifts included weapons, ores, and magical beasts. In addition to the resources that Watson had originally obtained after the battle, 12,000 Iron Tier Magical Beasts, 1,000 Bronze Tier Magical Beasts, 1,000 sets of Iron Tier Armor and Longswords, 100 sets of Bronze Tier Defensive Weapons, more than 100 pieces of jewelry, and a total of 20,000 gold coins. It was an unimaginable amount of wealth. According to the fusion system, 10 ordinary Iron Tier monsters could fuse to form a common Bronze Tier monster, while 2 elite monsters could fuse to form one. Fortunately, the quality of the monsters was not bad. After he fused the monsters, Watson had already obtained 5,000 Silver Tier 2 winged Veigars, of which 4,000 were fused with the Golden Flash to transform it from a 6-winged Golden Chimera to a 12-winged Golden Chimera. Its strength had reached the peak of Gold Tier. After all, the more he fused magical beasts of the same type, the more difficult it was to improve them. Watson expected to fuse another 5,000 beasts with the Golden Flash before it could break through to Platinum Tier. There was no need to rush that matter. After he solved the problem with the magical beasts, Watson began to fuse his weapons. Just like magical beasts, there were also differences in the quality of weapons. Silver Tier weapons could easily improve those with poor quality, and there were 300 sets of Silver Tier equipment in the castle. In addition, there were 50 pieces of high-quality equipment, all of which had been upgraded from bronze to Silver Tier armor. 50 Blackmoon Knights were equipped with one piece of equipment each, while the rest of the regular Silver Tier equipment was used for training. It did not matter even if they were damaged. Watson only needed to consume a certain amount of ores to deal with the damaged Silver Tier equipment. After he fused them, he would be able to restore them to their original state. He was prepared to wait until the winter to sell those ordinary Silver Tier pieces of equipment. He would sell them to the nearby manors for 50 gold coins each. Typically, a Bronze Tier weapon could be sold for 10 gold coins, and a Silver Tier weapon could be sold for 10 times that, so 50 gold coins was a meager price. Blackmoon Castle had already developed to a particular scale, so it would not be reasonable to expand it so rashly before it was stable. It would be better to build a good relationship with the nearby manors and form a business alliance. He had already promised more than 50 manors that Blackmoon Town would officially open after the winter season. At that time, each manor would be able to buy their own land and build their own shops to improve the town jointly. Watson, Zenoa, and I have always been proud of our business acumen. But, now, it seems that the smartest person in our family is you. Using force to intimidate others into becoming your allies and offering them good choices on time, only you can think of such a method. Zeke enjoyed the massage from the maid, his eyes narrowed comfortably. He could not help but sigh when he heard that. I didn't force them. After all, the other manors are also profiting from this. They can buy many things in Blackmoon Castle. For example, the silver longswords that we produced. Even if they are inferior, they can earn 50 gold coins by selling them for 100 gold coins. In the entire border, I haven't heard of anyone who can mass-produce silver weapons, Watson explained with a smile. It was because of the fusion system's advantages that he could buy low and sell high. He could sell things that others did not have but wanted. It was a way to curry favor with them. Blackmoon Castle was able to build a magnificent wall that covered tens of kilometers in 2 months. It could not be done without help from the various large manors, only a few of them knew of Blackmoon Castle's strength. He believed that after the news spread out, the entire border would be under his control, and it would only take a few years to realize Watson's expectations. The border count had also not said anything since he made such a big move in Blackmoon Castle. Perhaps he was busy preparing for winter and did not have time to pay attention to him. Initially, Watson had been on guard against the border count and often acted cautiously. Then, however, he had gotten bolder. Watson, tell me, how much assets do our family have now? Zenoa asked curiously. Let me think. Watson rubbed his chin. Excluding Blackmoon Castle itself, we have 1 million gold coins, 50,000 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs, 1,000 silver tier magical beasts, and 2 gold-tier magical beasts. There are still 4, oh, no, counting the ones that we just made for Alan, we now have 5 gold-tier equipment, 50 high-quality silver-tier equipment, and more than 200 ordinary silver-tier equipment. What about the men? Zeke added, how many people are there in the castle now? We have 5,000 people. More than 3,000 of them were from the defeated manors. They included 5 mages, 50 Blackmoon knights, and more than 20 maids. The rest are mostly farmers and laborers. Oh, right, I forgot to mention that due to the integration of more than 10 manors, we now have 1,500 acres of land in Blackmoon Castle. All of them are planted with crystal wheat. When the winter ends, and all the wheat ripens, we will sell them for a large sum of money. Watson rubbed his fingers and drew the shape of a gold coin. Zeke and Zeno looked at each other and gasped at the same time. They had expected that their family was rich, but they did not expect they had become so wealthy. Zeke said, with so many things, we should have at least a few million gold coins. Does that mean we are now millionaires? Zenoa asked, as rich as a country. A few months ago, his family was still thinking about which day of the week they would get to eat meat. They searched all over their house, but they could not find a single gold coin. It seemed like they could fill the castle with gold coins after Watson effected all those changes. Not to that extent. Perhaps as rich as a city. Watson smiled. Blackmoon Castle's total assets were no less than that of an ordinary noble. He had started a concrete step in the world, and he would only go further in the future. Third brother, fourth brother, the massages are almost done. It's time to take a bath. Or do you want to? Watson glanced at the lower parts of his 2 brothers as he spoke with a mocking expression. The 2 maidservants who were massaging Zeke and Zenoa blushed and said considerately, young masters, do you want us to serve you further? There's a room outside the bathroom. Perhaps that's not a good idea. Zeke grabbed his bathrobe embarrassedly. There's nothing wrong with that. It's our duty to serve our masters, the older maid said gently. She took Zeke's bathrobe off. It was their job to serve others, and it was an honor to serve the castle master's older brothers. Then, we'll take our leave first. Zeke were half pushed and half led out by the maids. Watson slid into the bath alone and enjoyed the hot water. He opened his arms and said, my brothers have been holding back for a long time. Let them enjoy it. I can also enjoy my own happy time. For a child his age, what was more pleasant than taking a bath alone? There was nothing else. Young master, we are here to help you take a bath. He heard a gentle voice as the bathroom door was pushed open. 2 beautiful figures walked into the bathroom slowly. Chapter 93, A Gathering of Bandits. Watson turned his head and saw Capella and Wendy. They were in white bathrobes, and under those bathrobes were the curves of an adolescent girl. Wendy was still young and had yet to develop fully, she only had a youthful curve on her chest. A bath towel covered her body, and only her slender collarbones and pale arms were exposed. It was different with Capella. The bathrobe she wore was translucent, and the peaks on her chest could be seen clearly. Watson opened his mouth, blood almost flowed from his nose. Capella and Wendy had already reached the edge of the bath and sat down beside him as he watched them. The unique fragrance from a young girl's body was lovely. Water vapor condensed into droplets and slid down the skin of those 2 girls. Young master, I'm here to scrub your back. Wendy held a towel in her hand and lowered her head with a blush on her face. On the other hand, Capella proudly puffed her chest and held it with both hands as she smiled charmingly. Young master, do you want to experience the comfortable service like before? The 2 of them had been waiting outside for a long time. They saw Watson brought his 2 brothers into the bathroom, and they waited for the twins to leave before they entered the bathroom. As the personal maids, they were only responsible for Watson. Wendy looked at Capella and then looked at herself. She said unwillingly, young master, if you want, I can also. Wendy, you don't have to force yourself to do that. Watson grinned. He was an adult in his previous life. He would always feel guilty when he saw such an expression on the teenage girl's face. Young master, I'm not forcing myself. I have been yours the moment I came to Blackmoon Castle. When he saw Wendy's determined look, Watson coughed. He felt that it was not good to refuse her, so he immediately coughed for a distraction. Well, I understand. I've been working hard all day, and I'm sweating all over. I need someone to help me take a bath. Come here and take a bath with me. Yes, young Master Watson. Wendy and Capella looked at each other, their faces were full of joy. At the same time, they took off their bathrobes and swam into the water like two snow-white fish. What happened next was an indescribable scene. That night, Watson went back to his room and ate more than 10 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. Of course, he did not do anything with them. Early in the morning, on a mountain not far from Blackmoon town. It was a barren mountain, surrounded by dense forests. If someone unfamiliar with the environment were there, they would definitely get lost. The mountain was hundreds of meters high, and every once in a while, a fence would be set up. There were caves of all sizes and also traces of man-made construction. At that moment, in the cave closest to the mountain base, a man in leather armor stood at the entrance on a lookout. There was a scar on the man's face that went across the bridge of his nose. His hair was golden and curly, and there were 2 scimitars on his back. He smiled coldly at the people in front of him. Those people were shivering, and they were in the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang uniform. The Bloodied Hand Bandit gang is too empty now. How could they be completely wiped out by an unknown person? Well, from today onward, this mountain will be taken over by the Storm Bandit gang. Now, we will give you 2 choices. The man softly spat out a few words. Surrender or die. Vegar, you've gone too far. Our boss has just died, and you're already here to steal our territory. Do you want to break the agreement between the major bandit gangs? A member of the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang questioned the man angrily. There was an agreement between the bandit gangs. Each bandit gang had its own jurisdiction, and other bandit gangs could not interfere with one another. If a bandit gang was wiped out, then the remaining bandits had the right to choose to join another gang of their own free will. No one else could interfere with their choices. The Storm Bandit gang was also a well-known bandit group at the border. The leader of the group was a silver-tier warrior. He was known as Green Lightning Vegar. People said that his weapon, the Storm Scimitar, was a silver-tier weapon found in a ruin in the misty forest. No one was his match when he had those 2 weapons. Previously, the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang had relied on Sparrow's leadership and the advantage in numbers to fight against the Storm Bandit gang. However, Vegar snorted in laughter. Then, he moved his hand around his waist. No one saw how he moved. They only saw a flash of blade light mixed with thunder whistled past them. One of the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang members was cut in half at the waist, blood and guts splattered all over the ground. When the others saw that, their faces ashen. They resisted the urge to vomit, and their legs trembled. I don't know about any agreement between the bandit gangs. I only know that the strong will survive while the weak will die. I'll give you one more chance to choose. Surrender or die. We the remaining Bloodied Hand Bandit gang members looked at each other. They were about to surrender. At that moment, a weak cough came from behind Vegar. Vegar, you came here right after the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang was destroyed. You are really well informed, indeed. However, you are too ambitious if you want to take over this territory for yourself. Vegar sneered and stared at an old man who wore a black bamboo hat with sawtooth-shaped edges. He walked with the help of a wooden cane. The man looked old, and the ground died wherever he walked. The grass and trees in the gaps between the rocks withered and turned yellow as if their vitality had been removed. 2 skeletal soldiers with swords and shields walked behind the old man. They smelled of death. Vegar's pupils constricted, and his aura increased. Sven, don't tell me that your poor bandit gang also wants a piece of the pie. Why don't you ask the two scimitars in my hand? Vegar, it looks like you're still the same. You're always so impatient, it's so easy for you to die. Then, another masked woman walked into the cave after the old man with the crutches. Well, to be precise, she floated into the cave, her feet did not touch the ground. The woman was tall and slender, and the mask on her face was in the shape of a rabbit. She also had a mouth full of fangs. She looked exceptionally strange. She wore a long black dress with golden and red patterns. It seemed very expensive. I can't believe that Lady Gluttony is here too. Vegar put his hand on the scimitar on his back. He seemed to have thought of something as he withdrew his hand again. Demise, Shabby, Storm, and Bloodied Hand were the four most significant bandit gangs in the border area, and the Demonis bandit gang was the most mysterious of them. Their members were all women, and their leaders were arrogant, angry, gluttony, part of the 7 deadly sins. Furthermore, they believed in the evil god known as the primordial Demonis. People said that the members of that bandit gang kept the ancient ritual of human sacrifices to obtain power. No one was willing to provoke them. The leaders of the other bandit gangs are gathered here. Do they really want our territory so badly? A few Bloodied Hand bandit gang members looked sorrowful. They had been surrounded by a man named Alan, and they only managed to escape with incredible difficulty. They did not expect to run into the leaders of the other 3 bandit gangs. That mountain was the Bloodied Hand bandit gang's lair, and it contained a small amount of wealth that they had accumulated. They did not think that those things could cause the 3 major bandit gangs to make such a big fuss. What was it that drove those people to want them? Chapter 94, A Group of Beggars. So, the Demonis bandit gang is also here for that purpose, right? Vegar looked at Lady Gluttony, then at Sven, and asked with a twinkle in her eyes. I think the people here have only one purpose, and that is to find the reason for the destruction of the Bloodied Hand bandit gang. The woman in a fanged rabbit mask laughed softly. Her voice was like a silver bell ringing, it was very pleasant to the ears. While we're at it, let's divide Sparrow's territory. It's impossible to monopolize such a large piece of territory by yourself. If you disagree, Vegar, you'll have to fight Mr. Sven and me simultaneously. That's not what you want, right? Every bandit gang had their own territory. They would usually work in their respective domains and did not interfere with each other. If they were to inherit the Bloodied Hand bandit gang's territory, their range of activity would increase by a lot. Therefore, they were not interested in the mountain itself. Instead, they were interested in its added value. All right, I'm not an unreasonable person. Let's follow the agreement between the bandit gangs and divide this land equally. Vegar nodded. His words made the several Bloodied Hand bandit gang members behind him so angry that they wanted to curse. What did he mean when he said that he was not an unreasonable person? If Vegar were a reasonable man, he would not have threatened them. There's no hurry for that. We want to know about the person who had destroyed the Bloodied Hand bandit gang. Sven knocked the crutch in his hand and looked at the survivors. Tell me, how did your boss die? Even though Sparrow was not an elite, he was still a silver tier warrior, after all. I really want to know, which manor would send 100 people to kill him? A young bandit raised a finger weakly. 100 people. Sven nodded, exchanging the lives of 100 guards for the death of a silver tier warrior, this is quite a good deal. However, the manor must be quite powerful to be willing to send 100 men. I've never heard of such a faction at the border. It was not 100 men. The young bandit shook his head. 10 men, then. Sven frowned. Sparrow died at the hands of 10 peak bronze tier warriors. Only 10 peak bronze tier warriors would be able to kill a silver tier warrior. Not exactly. The young bandit swallowed his saliva as he said, there was only one murderer. Yes, there was only one murderer. He vaguely remembered what had happened the previous day. They had followed their boss' instruction and guarded the horse carriages and supplies that they had plundered. They had waited for Sparrow to lead more than 50 people to slaughter the wealthy merchants that had left Monty Town. Then, they were to return to the mountain to celebrate. In the end, they did not see Sparrow. Instead, they had waited for a god of death. He was dressed in silver-white armor and held a long sword in his hand. He was like a god who had descended from the heavens. With just a few casual swings, he had wiped out more than half of their people. There was only one person. Sven's pupils were constricted as he cried out in surprise, "A Silver-Tier warrior!" He restrained his shocked expression quickly and asked the other two leaders, "What do you think?" "Hey, Sven, you can't really believe the words of these small fries, right?" Vegar was the first to speak. He glanced at the few bloodied hand bandit gang members disdainfully. "They may be Silver-Tier warriors. No matter how strong they are, it's impossible for them to kill Sparrow and destroy the entire Bloodied Hand Bandit gang at the same time. After all, the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang had more than 100 people. In my opinion, these survivors must have hallucinated because of the impact of their boss death. We didn't." The few survivors of the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang felt aggrieved. They did really see a person who had looked like a god of death. Regardless of whether this is true or not, we can't just ignore the appearance of a force that wiped out the entire Bloodied Hand Bandit gang. Sven coughed weakly. "I suggest that we join forces and destroy this force. The bandits were only active during the winter when the magical beasts wreak havoc on humans. The border count would have his hands full, he would not have any time to care about other things. There were not that many powerful manners at the border. Otherwise, how could they continue to plunder everyone else? Do you know the name of the person who attacked you?" Vegar had agreed with the suggestion, so he asked that question. Soon, a bandit told him what he wanted to know. "The man who killed our brothers was called Alan. He claims to be Blackmoon Castle's guard." Blackmoon Castle. The eyes of the three leaders turned cold, they knew that name. If Blackmoon Castle could destroy the entire Bloodied Hand Bandit gang, then they could also eliminate the other bandit gangs. They must not be left alive. "Let's do it in 3 days. Let's gather all our members and go to Blackmoon Castle to see its power. When we take this castle, let's get the spoils of war with our own abilities," Lady Gluttony suggested. The eyes of the other two leaders flashed with a bloodthirsty luster as they agreed to her suggestion. Deal. Since the three bandit gangs were located in different places, it took them more than 2 days to gather their forces. On the morning of the third day. It was already the 12th month, the grey sky was covered in light snow. A group of more than 500 bandits headed toward the direction of Blackmoon Town from 3 different directions. At the training field in Blackmoon Castle, Watson rode on the Golden Flash and flew into the sky. He waved his staff to practice gold-tier magic. Since he had almost mastered the humanoid auto-mine giant spell, he did not practice it that day. Instead, he practiced the spell in the half-gold-tier magic scroll that he had obtained after he killed Folsen the Silver Serpent on the raging sea. The clouds in the sky surged like waves, and lightning was contained within it. An illusory giant silver snake was also in it. Its body twisted and turned as if it carried a terrifying pressure. It looked like it could overturn the world and the ocean. Even though it's a defective spell, it is not weaker than the humanoid auto-mine giant spell. As expected, the lost ancient magic is powerful, indeed. It's hard to imagine how powerful this magic would be if it were a complete scroll, Watson muttered softly. Since it was half a scroll, the spell could not be performed normally. A large amount of magic elements had to be injected into it. Folsen had chosen a blood sacrifice to activate. However, Watson had a source of magic power, so he did not need to go through so much trouble. I wonder which ruins in the misty forest that Folsen had gotten this scroll from? It looks like I have to go there to take a look when I have time. Watson rubbed his chin and lowered his head to look at the training field. The number of Blackmoon Knights had increased from 50 men to 65 men as they had employed Lucas and the other caravan guards. After a few days of training, Lucas and the others' strength had improved, and they were also equipped with silver-tier armor. Their faces were filled with joy. After the winter, we will recruit another batch of men to increase the number of Blackmoon Knights to 100 men. That way, we will have the rudimentary form of an army. As he thought about his future plans, Watson heard a guard yelling out to him from the field. He descended with the golden flash hurriedly. After they landed, he saw Alan's strange expression as the man rushed toward him with a shout. "Young Master Watson, there's a group of beggars outside of Blackmoon town. There are a few hundred of them. They're using hoes and chisels to destroy the wall that we had built. Young Master, do you want to send some men to stop them?" Chapter 95, You have 3 minutes. Outside Blackmoon town. Outside the high walls made of obsidian gold, hundreds of bandit gang members in different attires were waving their swords with all their might as they hacked the wall in front of them while they hummed a ballad. "We are bandits, great bandits. We have seen mountains of knives and seas of fire, as well as fascinating treasures." It was obvious that the bandits were from 3 different camps based on their attire. One group was in green-grey robes with a blade tied to the end of the robe. An old man with a white beard and hair and a cane in his hand stood in front of that group. The other group was in sky-blue armor with lightning and dark clouds embroidered on it, and their leader carried 2 scimitars on his back. The last group was women in black robes and black masks. The leader wore a completely different rabbit mask. "I didn't expect so much obsidian gold, a rare silver-tier ore. They have so much that they have used it to build a wall. We're fortunate to see so many of these silver-tier ores before we attack Blackmoon Castle." The man with the 2 scimitars on his back was Green Lightning Vegar, and he was smiling smugly. 3 days ago, the bandit gangs had agreed to attack Blackmoon Castle together. They did not expect that they would see an endless city wall when they gathered their forces and arrived at their destination. The leaders of the 3 bandit gangs were all silver-tier elites. Therefore, they recognized the material used in the wall in front of them. "Vegar, maybe this is Blackmoon Castle's handiwork. I have been in seclusion for the past few months, and I didn't expect such a big change to have occurred since then." Sven, the leader of the shabby bandit gang, sighed. Lady Gluttony from the Demoness bandit gang did not say anything. Vegar glanced at Sven and curled his lips in disdain. "You're saying that Blackmoon Castle built this? I think you're getting old and muddle-headed. Only the fairy castle has the ability to build such a wall in the entire border. I would believe you if you said that the border count built this wall to deal with the magical beasts during the winter. No matter who built the wall, it should not have existed. The wall would be able to stop all the magical beasts in their tracks. If that were to happen, how would the bandits continue to plunder? The wall had to be torn down, and the bandits would take those ores as spoils of war." Even though obsidian gold was not particularly precious among silver-tier ores, Vegar knew that the wall was not the treasure he wanted. Hence, he gave an order to his men. "Hurry up and tear it down. Once we tear down this wall, we will rush in and destroy that castle." At that moment, Vegar still thought that Blackmoon Castle was only a puppet force that the border count controlled. It seemed like the Count had paid attention to where they had suffered the most losses during previous winters. Unfortunately, he was only giving them gifts. Ping! 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 Then, the Storm Bandit gang members smashed their weapons onto the wall. Sparks flew in all directions, but the wall was not damaged at all. Instead, the weapons in their hands were crushed. "Boss, the wall is too hard. We can't break it." A young bandit had a bitter expression on his face. "D****, my saber is broken. I spent dozens of gold coins on that iron-tier weapon." The older bandit beside him cursed as he looked at his saber with grief. "What a bunch of trash! You can't even handle such a small matter." Vegar snorted coldly. He drew the storm scimitar from his back and brandished it into 2 streaks of green lightning as he headed straight for the wall. The light was so bright that everyone else could not keep their eyes open. Vegar waved the scimitars and then sheathed them in one smooth move. Then, he turned around. He did not even look at the place where he had struck. Instead, he turned his head around confidently and said, "Did you see that? Attack it fiercely like that. If you can't tear down the wall today, you won't get to eat when we go back." After he finished speaking, Vegar suddenly felt that something was wrong. His surroundings were utterly silent. Many of his subordinates stopped what they were doing and stared at him with strange expressions on their faces. They swallowed their saliva and looked like they wanted to say something, but they did not dare to open their mouth. "Idiots, I told you to get to work. Why are you looking at me? Vegar, I advise you to look behind you," the demoness bandit gang's Lady Gluttony said. Vegar turned around and was instantly dumbfounded. The obsidian gold in the wall behind him still shimmered with a faint luster. There was not a single hole in it. Instead, the smooth mirror-like wall reflected his face as if it was mocking him. Vegar's face immediately turned red. He was very embarrassed, and there was a hint of panic in his shame. He had heard that obsidian gold was very tough, the hardest of all silver-tier minerals, but he had not expected it to be so strong. Vegar wanted to preserve his reputation, so he coughed and said, "That doesn't count." He brandished his scimitar again, and he used all of his strength. A pair of wings wrapped in lightning appeared on his back, and his entire body turned into a bolt of lightning. As it pierced through the air, the other men only felt a flash of light in front of them. Then, they saw a bolt of lightning collide with the wall with a loud bang. Vegar's blood rushed. He took a few steps backward and held a fist-sized piece of obsidian gold in his hand. He laughed out loud. "Did you see that? I managed to cut a piece of the obsidian gold. It is still very easy." Halfway through his laughter, he began to cough. The bandits were speechless. Sven shook his head. Lady Gluttony's mask moved, and two words echoed. "Childish. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you destroying the wall?" A childish voice suddenly echoed from the top of the wall, and it attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked up and saw a 10-year-old child as he poked his head out from the wall. He looked downward curiously. Watson looked at the men outside the wall with helplessness. He knew that the silver-tier ores he used for the wall would attract the wrong kind of attention. Therefore, he not only used the strongest ores for the wall, but he had also fused the ores multiple times to strengthen the obsidian gold. Where did the strangely dressed beggars come from? They looked organized and disciplined, and some of them seemed especially powerful. They exuded the aura of silver-tier elites. Did silver-tier elites have to beg? That should not be the case. Those people must have been the bandits that other people always mentioned. However, he did not provoke them, so why were they there to destroy his home? Watson thought about it, and his eyes suddenly widened. He remembered that Alan had destroyed a bandit gang called the Bloodied Hand Bandit Gang a few days ago. Were those beggars their accomplices? Were they there for revenge? Watson's expression sank as he shouted, "I'm warning you. This is Blackmoon Town's border. You're playing with fire if you dare to mess around here. I'll give you 3 minutes to leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you." Watson preferred to handle things peacefully, so he gave them a warning first. However, he did not expect that the warning would have the opposite effect. "You'll be rude to me? You? Kid, whose child are you? Didn't your parents teach you that you shouldn't eat and speak without permission?" Vegar held his two blades and looked upward with a disdainful expression. Then, he said, "I'll give you a chance to. Go back and tell your parents that the Storm Bandit Gang has expropriated this land. And I want to see the person in charge of this place in 3 minutes. Otherwise, I'll kill everyone behind this wall. Remember, you only have 3 minutes." Chapter 96, Vegar's Death. 3 minutes? Watson was amused. They had underestimated him. Well, anyone who saw his appearance would treat him like a child. Who would have thought that a 10-year-old child was the person in charge of Blackmoon Castle? "Young Master Watson, these evil bandits spoke so rudely to you. Please allow me to kill them all, Alan, who stood behind Watson, said as he glanced downward. He was the one who first discovered those bandits while he was on patrol. He immediately told Watson that there were still 64 Blackmoon knights and 5 mages with him. That's right, young Master Watson. These bandits are very hateful. Many people at the border have lost their lives because of them. Young Master, let me go out and fight for the people, List said as he held the long sword by his waist. He had a hateful expression on his face. Young Master, I want to fight too. The burly man, William, carried a hammer and stepped forward, followed by the other members of the Blackmoon Knights. So do we. Since Watson told them not to reveal themselves, they did not act rashly. Watson's second sister, Nindy, stood behind the Blackmoon Knights. She was there because she heard that someone had caused trouble outside the wall. Her mother, Catherine, was worried that Watson would go there alone, so she had asked her to look after him. Nindy was also curious about the person bold enough to offend Blackmoon Castle. Nindy, those are bandit gangs. This is the first time I've seen a member of a bandit gang alive. Can I join the battle? Indix looked excited, her green hair danced in the wind. She wanted to walk toward Watson, but Nindy pulled her back and reprimanded her. Indix, don't make a scene. We're mages. Mages are very vulnerable before they finish casting their spells. There are so many archers in the bandit gang. What if you get shot? It doesn't matter. I'm a silver tier mage now. With the iron water barrier spell, I'm immune to most attacks. Besides, I've just learned the silver tier spell, the water elemental warrior summon. I haven't used it yet. Indix pouted in dissatisfaction. Among the mages in Blackmoon Castle, she was the most talented one, aside from Nindy. The 2 female mages were the only iron tier mages that Folson had selected in his group. They were also the first mages in the group to advance to the silver tier. Besides Nindy, Indix had also mastered both spells for the water elemental warrior summon and the mine cannonball. Nindy sighed when the other 3 male mages were also excited after they heard Indix's words. She had no right to criticize them as she felt the same way too. Watson waited until the discussion was over before he waved his hand. Don't worry, everyone. I'll see if I can drive these bandits away. If they insist on committing evil deeds, then you can attack them. Young Master Watson is really merciful, but not everyone in this world is worthy of forgiveness. List sighed. Watson did not say anything more. Instead, he turned around and shouted toward the people outside the wall. Your 3 minutes are almost up. Are you retreating? I've warned you. Blackmoon Castle is very powerful, you are no match for us. But we love peace and don't want to see needless bloodshed. Did you want obsidian gold? Watson activated his fusion skill and grabbed some stones from the wall. Then, he fused it into dozens of fine pieces the size of his palm and threw them down the wall. I'll give you some. You can leave if you're satisfied. Satisfied? Vegar's veins on his forehead bulged when he saw the obsidian gold by his feet. He felt humiliated. They were bandits, not beggars. Did the kid give him alms? Did he want the obsidian gold? No, he wanted the entire wall and the lives of everyone in Blackmoon Castle. 3 minutes have passed. I'm sorry, kid, you haven't made the right decision. Now, I'll just have to ask you to die. Vegar spread his combat aura wings that were wrapped in lightning and flew toward Watson. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed the wall that was dozens of meters high. The other bandits looked at him and then at Watson, their expressions were full of pity. This kid is finished. Even though we don't know how he managed to tear the wall when Lord Vegar couldn't do it, he has angered a silver tier elite. He's only a child, how can he resist? Since Lord Vegar isn't here, let's take advantage of this opportunity to keep these obsidian gold pieces. We don't want anyone to get them first. A few clever bandits went to pick the obsidian gold up from the ground. Meanwhile, Vegar had also reached the top of the wall. He stretched his hands out to hold the dual blades on his back. He was prepared to slash at the youth in front of him. However, the moment his hands touched the weapons, he was suddenly stunned. He realized that the child had not been alone, there were dozens of people with him, and all of them stared at him with wide eyes. What? What's going on? Vegar was dumbfounded. He did not know that there were so many people on the wall. However, it did not matter. He was a silver tier warrior. Even if those people were all bronze tier warriors, they would not be able to stop him. On the contrary, the armor that those people wore shone with a silver light. It was extremely attractive. One look and one could tell that they were not ordinary items. Vegar licked his lips greedily. He felt that he had done the right thing when he chose to be the first person to go up the wall. I've given you 2 chances, but you did not take it. Then don't blame me for being harsh. Watson revealed a childish and innocent smile. Vegar felt that it was strange. Was the kid stupid? He was not even scared when he was about to die. Instead, the child laughed. He even said that he would give Vegar a chance. Was that a joke? Everyone, you can go ahead. The Blackmoon Knights, who had been waiting for Watson's words, revealed a bloodthirsty glint toward Vegar as their combat aura wings appeared behind their backs. Vegar had mocked Watson, but at that moment, his expression had frozen on his face. Combat aura wings. Silver tier warriors. Those people in front of him were silver tier warriors. With his mouth agape, Vegar looked at the scene in disbelief. It was no wonder the young child did not panic. There were so many silver tier warriors there to protect him. However, he had never heard of such a powerful force at the border, except for the fairy castle. Was the child from the fairy castle? Was he the border count's illegitimate son? His palms were on the scimitars on his back, but Vegar did not draw his sword. Instead, he turned around and prepared to escape. There were too many elites on the same level as he would only court death if he were to rush forward. However, a man in heavy water elemental armor shouted, "Come here, you!" Then the man grabbed his wings. Why is Vegar so slow? It's only a chili, and he's the green lightning bolt. Should we call him a green snail instead? Sven tapped the crutch in his hand as he waited impatiently. A minute had passed since Vegar flew up toward the wall. He saw the man disappear to the other side of the wall behind the young child. He had no idea what had happened. Sven let him go up first so that the man could scout ahead. Even if the man found something good, it would not have looked good if he stayed there on purpose. After a few moments of hesitation, Sven spread his black wings. Lady Gluttony, who was nearby, had the same thought. Her rabbit mask began to glow, and her feet gradually left the ground. At that moment, a heart-wrenching roar echoed from the other side of the wall. It sounded like Vegar's voice, and it made the bandits shudder. Then, one of the bandits pointed at the sky and shouted shrilly, "Look at the sky!" Everyone looked up and saw a dignified middle-aged man in silver armor. He held a long sword in one hand and Vegar in the other as he floated in the air. Vegar's head had twisted to the side at an impossible angle, and his eyes were wide open as if he was angry and had seen something unbelievable. He was dead. Chapter 97, Give Way. Is that him? Sven raised his head to look at the sky before he waved his hand. Immediately, a man in a green-grey robe appeared beside him. He held a piece of parchment with a portrait in his hand and placed it in front of him. After he compared the two, he said, "That's right, Master. According to the people of the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang, this is the same person who killed Sparrow." The bandit's voice shook. That person had not only killed Sparrow, but he had also killed Vegar. Just how powerful was he? Light snow fell from the sky as Vegar's corpse dripped in blood. White and red, snow and blood, the dignified man in the sky looked even more outstanding. Vegar is dead. Later, we'll take the opportunity to recruit his members. The first bird can only see the treasure, but not the danger contained within it. Such a person is young, indeed. Sven tapped on the wooden cane in his hand. He furrowed with a smile. He was different from Vegar. Vegar's ancestors had been bandits for generations, they were not very knowledgeable. He had been a nobleman in the northern part of the kingdom not far from the border. He was known as the Shabby Baron and had his own territory. However, a plague had ravaged the northern part of the kingdom about 10 years ago. More than half of the population in his territory had died, including his wife and 2 daughters. He was lucky enough to have escaped it. The kingdom did not offer him any help, and they even ordered troops to his territory and burned it to the ground to prevent the spread of the plague. He was there when they turned his home into ashes overnight. He changed after that. He was the only survivor of the plague. He had recruited other people into his shabby bandit gang, and they had hunted near the border for the past few years. Then, with his exceptional skills, the shabby bandit gang had become one of the 4 main bandit gangs. Sven did not forget what had happened that year. After an exhaustive investigation, he had found out that someone had deliberately caused the plague. Along with his tragic memory and pain, he wanted to make the kingdom pay for it. Revenge needed strength. He did not feel sad when he saw Vegar's death. Instead, he was a little happy about it because he could take over his territory. Then, he looked at Lady Gluttony. He sighed discreetly at the leader of the demise bandit gang. Even though she looked young, she had a cunning streak, she did not follow Vegar into the fight. It would be great if she were to die with him. As Sven thought about that, he coughed twice and tightened his coat. He learned a special kind of combat aura called the Lost Undead. It could absorb power from the dead and control the corpses. The more people died around him, the stronger he would become. However, there was a price to pay for that. He would become weaker and more inhuman. That was his trump card. No one knew that after Vegar died, the power from his corpse would gradually flow into his body to increase his strength. Not enough people have died. After a few more people die, I will be able to take over everything. Sven's gaze was fierce as he thought about that proudly. Lady Gluttony also stood to watch as everything unfolded. Her eyes were cold and lifeless. Vegar's corpse continued to drip blood from the sky. She was not afraid. Instead, it made her body yearn for flesh and blood. The demise bandit gang was different from the other bandit gangs. They believed in the evil god, the primordial witch, and they had many taboos. Their members were all orphans who had been captured and brainwashed since they were young, and they trained in combat daily. Only the survivors could become their official members, and the 7 outstanding members were taught the gold-tier greats in combat aura to become the bearers of the evil god. They thought their purpose was glorious. The 7 leaders of the demise bandit gang were ranked according to the 7 great sins, and there could only be 7 of them. They could only substitute the leader if they had died. Lady Gluttony remembered when her predecessor had died in her hands. She had devoured her flesh and blood. The woman had died in despair and screams. Blood, intestines, this should be the most delicious food in the world. Unfortunately, in this hellhole, we either eat or be eaten. Devouring others will make you stronger. Lady Gluttony licked her scarlet lips under the mask. When I find an opportunity to devour Vegar's body, I'll let Sven fight with that mysterious elite. Then, when both of them are injured, I'll devour them all. That way, I'll be the strongest in the demise bandit gang. At that moment, her strength in the demise bandit gang was only in the mid-tier. There were still a few people who were stronger than her. However, that situation would soon change. When the leaders of the 2 bandit gangs had schemed against each other, Alan, who hovered in the sky, felt very helpless. When Vegar charged at the wall by himself, the Blackmoon Knights did not hold back. Each of them punched the bandit leader, and then Alan had been voted to bring Vegar's body to the remaining bandits to deter them from doing the same thing. Alan thought that the bandits would charge at him when they noticed that their leader had died. He had thought of a few oppressive lines, and as he said them, he would go 300 rounds with those bandits. He wanted Watson to see his bravery. However, why did the bandits not play by the rules? None of them moved. How was he supposed to show off? Hey, Alan could not stand the stalemate, so he cleared his throat and was about to speak. Before he could finish his words, someone had interrupted him. Sven, who was outside the wall, knocked his crutch and said, "Lady Gluttony, I have a suggestion. Since Brother Vegar is already dead, as his allies, we must avenge him. The Demoness bandit gang is stronger than the shabby bandit gang. So why don't you avenge Brother Vegar? After the deed is done, I'll let you choose the spoils of war first. How about that? Mr. Sven, you're flattering me. The Demoness bandit gang is only a gathering place for a group of weak and pitiful women. How can we compare to you? Among all the bandit gangs, you're the one with the highest seniority. Why don't you give us a demonstration so that I can learn from an outstanding bandit? No, I'm old, and my legs don't work well. I'd better give this opportunity to you young people. Although I'm not a noble, I know the virtue of respecting the old and cherishing the young. After you, please. After you. After you." Sven and Lady Gluttony continued to gesture with their hands. Neither of them moved, and even their subordinates pressed their hands on their weapons. They looked at each other. They did not know what to say. They did not dare to show their impatience either. "Why are you giving way to each other?" Alan was the first to be impatient. First, he glanced at the two bandit leaders. Then, finally, he chose Sven. After all, he was a gentleman. If he wanted to show mercy to a lady, he did not need to show the same to an old man. As he spoke, he lifted Vegar's body. The sky-blue combat aura wings on his back flapped. He turned into a blue light and fell straight down. "Looks like we finally have a result." Lady Gluttony's tone was filled with pleasure. Sven's eyes flashed, and it was as if each of his wrinkles was filled with killing intent. He raised the crutch in his hand fiercely. "You chose me first? It looks like you're underestimating me. If that's the case, then I'll send you to hell with one move. Come on, my Legion of Undead." Chapter 98, A Legion of Undead vs. Blackmoon Knights. As Sven spoke, the ground beneath his feet trembled. Streams of grey air currents covered the ground like long snakes. The soil covered in snow was pushed aside as skeletal arms stretched out from within the earth. Soon, those skeletons crawled out from the ground. Some of those white skeletons still had some flesh on them, while others decayed until only clothes were left. They held rusty shields or swords in their hands as they surrounded Sven. Sven coughed twice as a dark aura flashed across his face. He looked pained. However, it only lasted for a second before he suppressed it and tapped his crutch. Thump! The skeleton soldiers around Sven raised their swords in unison. Scarlet flames burned in their deep eye sockets as they roared toward the sky. There were more than 20 skeleton soldiers, and a few of them were still quite fresh. They wore the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang's uniform and emitted the aura of Bronze Tier warriors. Those skeletons were the Bloodied Hand Bandit gang member that Sven had killed the previous day. After he received the information he wanted from those men, he had killed them and turned them into his followers. The dead would never lie, and corpses had the most reliable information. That was what Sven thought. Summoning the undead, what method is this? Alan, who had dived down, saw the change, and he stopped in mid-air. His scalp was numb. He had heard that when one cultivated combat aura to the extreme, it could have an effect comparable to magic. Some special combat aura had their own ability, for example, Nightingale's shadow transformation ability. That was the first time he had seen someone control the undead. The man was a Silver-tier elite, and he was much stronger than an ordinary Silver-tier warrior as he had a group of skeleton underlings. The undead army that our master summoned can preserve the strength of the dead just as when they were alive. Furthermore, those undead soldiers will never die as long as our master remains alive, not even if they're burned or hacked into pieces. No matter their strength, what can they do against an enemy that can't be killed? A few bandits from the shabby bandit group brandished their swords and shouted. At the same time, they stepped far away from the nearest skeletons. They knew their master's strength. He would control an area of about 100 meters. They would become part of his undead army if they died there. Bunch of idiots. If you don't want to die, then shut up. Sven looked at his subordinates with dissatisfaction as he berated them. It was a battle of wits. Whoever had more hidden trump cards would win. Who would reveal their trump cards to the enemy right from the start? However, that was also good. Sven walked forward with more than 20 skeletons by his side. Well, you have seen my strength. It is not too late for you to regret your decision now. He thought Lady Gluttony should have fought with that mysterious, strong man from Blackmoon Castle. He could benefit from that fight. If he fought with that man and consumed too much energy, he would not be able to keep Lady Gluttony at bay. He believed that his opponent would make the right choice after they saw his strength. It's not that I regret it, I just feel that it's quite troublesome. Alan scratched his head as he threw Vegar's body to the side casually. Then he revealed the dark golden glove that covered his right hand. The inconspicuous glove began to change. Black thorns started to grow from his fingertips. Troublesome? Sven had used all of his strength to summon a legion of undead, but the man only felt that it was troublesome. Sven's eyes narrowed. He could summon an undead army because of the combat aura he cultivated and the staff in his hand, the undead calamity. His combat aura and staff were found in a mysterious underground ruin that led straight to the Earth's core. There were countless layers, and each layer was filled with numerous skeletons, both human and magical beasts. He found the staff and combat aura cultivation technique in the first layer. However, they were all incomplete. There were 7 holes on the staff of the undead calamity, which should be used to house gemstones. However, there was nothing on them now. He had also gone down to the second layer to check. However, the guardian skeleton there had changed from bronze to silver tier. He was not a match for it at all. He was certain that there must be something better on the second layer, so he memorized the location of the ruins. He was prepared to wait until he was stronger before he went to investigate it again. As for Alan, the incomplete silver tier undead calamity staff was enough to deal with that man. Attack! Sven shouted to direct more than 20 skeletons around him to charge at Alan. Then, his gaze fell on Lady Gluttony. He wanted to be on his guard so that she would not take the opportunity to ambush him. In the blink of an eye, the sound of bones breaking suddenly came from in front of him. Sven turned his head and saw a shocking scene. It was as if the bronze tier skeletons were as fragile as paper in front of Alan. He had destroyed them very easily with his golden gloves, which completely absorbed the skeleton's flesh and blood. It was as if its bones were detached. It could not walk steadily even after it had reassembled. On the contrary, the red patterns on Alan's gloves became brighter and brighter. It was as if they were human blood vessels. This is silver tier equipment. Sven determined that his opponent's gloves were not an ordinary weapon. At the very least, they were silver tier equipment. You were the one who attacked me just now. Now it's my turn. Alan used his fist to push the skeleton in front of him aside. He rushed towards Sven and punched him in the chest. Sven retreated abruptly and used the crutch in his hand to block Alan's attack. The crutch was bent at a strange angle with a creak. Sven spat a mouthful of blood and retreated a few steps backward. With a puzzled expression, he said, "This person has great strength. An ordinary silver tier warrior's strength should be around 3,000 K.T.s. He sensed that the other party's strength was above 5,000 K.T.s. Alan was also very puzzled. He stared at his own hand and said, "This is the gold tier weapon that young Master Watson had given me. How could it not break the old man's crutch? Is the crutch also a gold tier weapon? Then I must obtain it for young Master." As he spoke, Alan took another step towards Sven. Sven wiped the blood from the corners of his lips and waved at his subordinates. "Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and attack him. Then, he looked at Lady Gluttony and said, "Are you only going to stand by and watch the show? If you continue to do that, then I won't be able to accompany you." Humph! Lady Gluttony snorted noncommittally. She gestured at her subordinates with her chin and said, "Attack." More than 100 women in black veils and masks took their daggers from their thighs and went forward quietly. Together with Sven's shabby bandit gang, Vegar's storm bandit gang was sandwiched in the middle. They knew that their boss had died, so they were treated as the abandoned children. However, since there were blades behind them, they could only brace themselves and charge forward. Nearly 400 bandits charged forward at the same time. The chaotic footsteps shook the ground as countless blades, and combat aura smashed onto Alan's armor. They made a clanging sound. They continued to push him back. His face was bloodied even though a small portion of the attacks flew past his head. Among the 400 bandits, there were dozens of bronze-tier warriors. Alan would not be able to deal with them even if he was a silver-tier warrior unless he flew into the sky. Once he had the momentum to take off, Sven and Lady Gluttony would join forces to force him downward again. Alan gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. He looked bitter. The bandits who attacked him also looked bitter. What kind of monster was that man? Why was his armor not damaged after such a lengthy fight? Ordinary silver-tier warriors would have died under those attacks. Just as they were about to put in more effort, the child who had spoken poked his head out from the wall again. He said, "It seems like Alan has fallen into a bitter battle. You guys should go and help him." A flurry of voices followed closely behind. "Alan can't do it either. He only managed to hold on for such a short while. He shouldn't be the team leader anymore. He had managed to hold on for more than a minute as 400 men attacked him. If his strength were not enough, then could another person endure the same treatment?" The bandits who heard that raised their heads saw a scene that they would never forget. They saw warriors in similar silver-tier armor flew into the sky. There were about 50 of them. Different colored combat aura wings flapped on their back. It sounded like thunder as they cast mottled shadows on the ground. Chapter 99, Total Suppression. What the hell is this? One of the bandits stared blankly at the sky as his face trembled. Am I seeing things? The other bandit rubbed his eyes until his eyes became red and swollen. They heard someone in the sky say that Alan's strength was not good enough, and they had thought that the person was bragging. However, it seemed like the other party had told the truth. These people are all silver-tier warriors. Sven stared blankly at the sky. He was dumbfounded as he stared at the dozens of silver-tier warriors. Where did so many people come from? Were all the silver-tier warriors at the border there? Run! The first thought that came to his mind was to run. Sven turned his head, leaned on his cane, and limped back into the bandit gangs. The second person to escape was Lady Gluttony. She had hovered in mid-air, but she turned around and picked up Vegar's corpse that Alan had thrown onto the ground during the battle. The rabbit head mask on her face flickered with a strange red light as she sped up and disappeared into the demoness bandit gang. More than 400 people could not kill Alan in those few minutes. Coupled with those dozens of silver-tier warriors in the sky, they would probably be killed if they walked too slowly, let alone kill the other party. At that moment, the young man who had been sticking his head out and talking on the wall appeared again. He shouted to the people outside the wall, "Blackmoon Knights, it's time for you to show off. Don't let any of these people go. The top 3 men who kill the most enemies will be rewarded with 100 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs." "Yes, Lord Watson." The dozens of silver-tier warriors in the sky lowered their heads and agreed at the same time. Their gazes landed on the people on the ground, and their eyes were filled with killing intent. At that moment, the situation had changed. The bandits had become prey while they were hunters. "Everyone, don't panic. There are only dozens of them. We have 400 men. As long as we stabilize the formation, they might not be our match," a bronze-tier warrior bandit shouted. He held 2 daggers in his hands. His body exuded an extraordinary aura. As soon as his voice echoed, a ray of light streaked across the top of his head. A Blackmoon knight had been flying low on the ground, his sharp combat aura wings had cut off the bandit's neck. Shoot the arrows quickly. Force these silver-tier warriors down from the sky. As long as we fight on the ground, they won't have any advantage. Another person drew his bow and nocked an arrow as he spoke. The advantage of a silver-tier warrior was their ability to fly. If they could not fly, then their strength would be significantly reduced. Whoosh! 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 Arrows covered in combat aura tore through the air like meteors. The Blackmoon knights managed to dodge some of them, while others landed on their bodies. They did not cause any damage because their armors were silver-tier equipment, but the Blackmoon knights had decapitated all the archers from the bandit gangs. Fresh blood splattered onto the ground. Suddenly, there was silence. Run! Someone in the bandit gang shouted. Hundreds of people scattered in a swarm, they pushed and shoved as they ran from the wall. I'm running. Don't push me. Some people were pushed as they ran, and others were trampled. Some people ran too slowly, and their chests were pierced, their bodies pushed to the side. The bandits panicked. If there were only dozens of silver-tier warriors, they could still fight if they put their mind to it. However, their opponents were silver-tier warriors and equipped with equipment of the same level. Who could withstand that onslaught? Young Master said that we should not leave anyone alive. Charge! Alan spread his sky-blue combat aura wings and charged toward the front. He raised the guardian sword in his left hand, the blade swung down, and heads flew upward. The endless sea black blood thorny gloves on his right hand shone brightly. It would extract flesh and blood from anyone it touched, but it seemed to have eaten its fill as it pulsed vigorously. When the blood in the glove was full, Alan released the skill that came with the glove, the endless sea of blood. It was a spell that was comparable to gold tier power. A blood-colored waterfall appeared and turned into a python that was dozens of meters long. The python opened its mouth and breathed blood-colored flames melted people into bones. Their bones cracked as they died. The spell had killed dozens of people. I was unable to punish these bandits just now, and it made me lose my dignity in front of young Master Watson. So now, I have to work hard to regain it. Otherwise, young Master Watson will think that I'm useless and may dismiss my position as captain. That was what Alan had thought, so he did not hold back in his attacks. The other Blackmoon knights were not willing to be outdone too. They fought bravely, and the silver-tier armor on their bodies was gradually covered in blood. Besides Watson, only Lucas and the others who only just joined the Blackmoon knights were still standing on the wall. They were looking downward toward the ground with envious eyes. 100 rainbow phoenix chicken eggs. After they became Blackmoon knights, they received 3 eggs every day. Only then did they realize how good those eggs had tasted. Silver-tier warriors who often ate rainbow phoenix chicken eggs had a few thousand catties more in strength than those who did not. Unfortunately, they had joined too late. They had not reached silver-tier yet, so they could not join the fight. As if he could see what was in their thoughts, Watson comforted them, "Don't worry. There will be many opportunities like this in the future. As long as you work hard, there will be a time for you to fight in the future." Yes, young Master Watson. As they resisted the desire to rush out to fight, more than 10 Blackmoon knightsmen lowered their heads. "Brother Watson, it's too boring to watch from the wall. Let me go down and have some fun too." At that moment, Indix walked up to Watson and bent down as her round eyes pleaded with him. She did not want to compete with the Blackmoon knights for the reward. They were mages and were treated very well in Blackmoon Castle. Even though Watson initially said that mages could only receive 1 egg per day, however, with Nindy's help, she could eat as much as she wanted. She did not have any deep-rooted hatred toward the bandits. She only wanted to test her strength after she had become a silver-tier mage. Watson exchanged a look with his sister, Nindy. When he saw the hint in Nindy's eyes, Watson nodded. "All right then. Let's send out the mages as well. Let these bandits see Blackmoon Castle's strength. Let them know that no one can bully us so easily. Yes. Index smiled excitedly. She hugged Watson's shoulder and gave him a big kiss on the cheek. Watson looked helpless as he touched the warm, sweet lipstick on his face and felt the envious gazes of the guards around him. He watched as the 5 mages, led by Index, rode their 2-winged Liger into the sky. Then he could see them murmuring as they weaved their magic. With the addition of the mages, the battle got even more one-sided. Great water element, listen to my call and become an indestructible cannonball. Silvertier magic mine cannonball. Hundreds of water balls the size of human heads wrapped in wind and thunder fell from the sky and landed on the ground. Then they released bursts of explosions. Each bomb sent soil flying about 5 meters away to reveal a charred hole. Any bandit hit by the explosion, regardless of their strength, flew upward and burst into pieces. Those who were at the center of the blast suffered an even more miserable state. They were directly blown into meat paste, and the armor they wore had turned into dregs. Watson looked at the mess on the ground as he stood on the wall with his hands behind his back. The bandit gangs were in a sorry state, only less than 10% of them escaped. He looked like an emperor watching over his soldiers on the battlefield. He knew that the battle had come to an end. Chapter 100, Gluttony. D*MN it is as I expected. Blackmoon Castle has a connection to the border count. Sven swore as he spread his combat aura wings and fled. Since more than half of his subordinates were dead or injured, streaks of greenish-gray air currents drifted from the corpses in the distance and gathered on his body. It helped to increase his speed. When he looked backward, he saw 5 mages used magic to bombard the ground. He knew that they were Silvertier mages. 5 Silvertier mages. Only the border count, who was in charge of the fairy castle, had people with such strength. Coupled with the 50 Silvertier warriors, it was as easy as crushing a dead branch. Did the border count transfer all his elites there? Who was the child on the wall? Was he the border count's illegitimate son? There were too many things on his mind, but Sven did not have time to think about them. He knew that if he did not run, he would die. Whoosh! Suddenly, a piercing sound echoed from behind him. Sven subconsciously raised the staff in his hand to block it. A considerable force came at him, and it caused his body to tilt. He almost fell onto the ground. Sven looked backward and realized that the person who had attacked him was not someone from the Blackmoon Knights but a familiar face. The thing that struck him was a human head. It was Vegar's. Lady Gluttony, you lunatic! What are you doing? Sven took 2 steps backward and saw the rabbit head mask on Lady Gluttony's face squirmed as if it was alive. The fangs on the rabbit's mouth chewed on the bright red flesh as she dragged Vegar's body with her hand. Intestines mixed with blood had spilled all over the ground. Nothing, I'm just enjoying the food. I've tasted the appetizer, now it's time for the main dish. Lady Gluttony giggled, her laughter hit the inner side of the mask. It was somewhat ear-piercing. She pulled an arm from Vegar's body casually, put it into the mask, and bit into it. A pair of pitch-black combat aura wings spread out on her back as she floated towards Sven. The combat aura wings looked very strange. Human faces appeared on them, one after another. They let out strange cries, but it was as if they were imprisoned. They appeared in pain for a few seconds before they sank, unable to break free. A sudden drop in temperature accompanied the strange cries. It made the surroundings seem gloomy. They were in a forest several kilometers away from Blackmoon town. In the forest, there were paths that horse carriages had made. It would take about 2 days to get to Monty Town from Blackmoon town, and they would have to go through a forest. Sven ignored that. He stared at Lady Gluttony and said, "You're a lunatic. You're eating corpses. I heard that the Demonis bandit gang members are a bunch of lunatics. Now it seems that they were right. Blackmoon Castle's Silvertier warriors are still chasing us. If we make a move here, it's very likely that we'll attract their attention. None of them will be able to escape. Let's discuss this. Let me go, and I won't make a move on you. What do you think? Sven tightened his grip on his walking stick discreetly as he spoke. Lady Gluttony glanced at Sven's palm through her mask and smiled. I never believe a bandit's word, especially you, shabby Baron Sven. Your lies had led hundreds of people to their deaths. And you're doing the same to me. If I were to relax my stance, you'd use your walking stick to blow my head off. Am I right? Go to hell. When he knew that he could not trick Lady Gluttony, Sven gritted his teeth and waved the staff in his hand. Dark Elemental Silvertear Fighting Technique Death Crow Swarm. A greenish-grey air current emerged from Sven's body and drilled into the ground. It caused the grass on the ground and the surrounding trees to wither. After that, the air current gradually lost its luster, and Sven had transformed his lifeless combat aura into a lively grey crow. It shook its feathers, and its scarlet eyes were filled with the aura of death. Then, hundreds of pitch-black crows rushed toward Lady Gluttony and quickly swallowed her. They had turned into a pitch-black storm that stretched for dozens of meters. The air was filled with the aura of corruption, and the ground touched by the storm was riddled with crevasses that was enough to prove the power of that move. As he wiped the sweat off his head, Sven flapped his combat aura wings and continued this retreat. At that moment, a few more strands of white hair had appeared on his head, and his face was even more profound. Fortunately, hundreds of my fellow bandits had died on the battlefield just now, so I've absorbed a lot of power. This move might have used up a few years of my lifespan, but it's already comparable to a gold-tier warrior's strike. No one can stop it. Lady Gluttony, if you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for your stupidity. After he had muttered to himself, Sven turned around. He was prepared to leave that place as soon as possible. The undulations from a Silvertear combat aura were quite intense. Perhaps the Blackmoon Knights had already discovered him. The moment he turned around, an arm made of pitch-black fog pierced through his chest with a loud sound. He lowered his head to look at the fresh blood that flowed from his chest. Sven widened his eyes, and his face was filled with disbelief. What is going on? It looks like you're also cultivating a dark elemental combat aura. That's just right for me. After eating you, my strength will be raised to the peak of Silver Tier, and I won't be far from reaching Gold Tier then. Then, I'll eat a few more Blackmoon Knights. I might be able to become a Gold Tier warrior today. The voice echoed from within the black storm. Lady Gluttony walked out of it slowly. Her gorgeous dress flapped in the wind, but she was unscathed. On the contrary, the black storm had disappeared as it entered the mask on her face gradually. Her right hand was covered with a layer of black fog, and the fog had spread towards Sven's chest. When she reached Sven, Lady Gluttony withdrew her fog arm and pinched his neck gently. The sound of drooling echoed from under the mask. So, where should I start? Let me see, let's start with your neck. Sven felt something had bit his neck. He opened his mouth, but he could only grunt. He could not speak, he could only feel his life pulled from his body bit by bit. When did things get out of his control? Was it when he agreed to attack Blackmoon Castle? Or had it started when he first misjudged Lady Gluttony's strength? He still had unfinished business, he still wanted to become stronger as he wanted to avenge his people. Natasha and Relissa. Sven thought of his two daughters in the last few moments of his life. Tears started to stream down his cheeks. In his days, he heard a few angry roars from the forest. Found them. The bandits who had escaped. Is she eating someone? Then, he heard Lady Gluttony's complaint. D*****. After that, she released her grip on his body, and he fell heavily onto the ground. He had lost consciousness then. An hour later, the Blackmoon Knights and the Fives Mages returned to the wall triumphantly. Alan knelt on one knee respectfully and reported the situation to Watson. His expression did not look good, and there was only one reason for that. Reporting to young Master Watson, we've wiped out the bandits. Only one of them managed to escape, a woman by the name of Lady Gluttony. A few of our men were injured when they tried to capture her, they are now recuperating. We also captured the shabby bandit gang leader, but we think that Lady Gluttony had injured him, his carotid artery was ruptured. If we don't treat him in time, he will only live for a few more minutes. It was an embarrassment. A few silver-tier warriors had gone to capture a woman, but they were injured. Their daily training was for nothing. Alan did not know if young Master Watson would get angry about that. However, he was stunned when Watson did not get angry. He nodded as if he understood the situation. I understand. Take me to see the shabby bandit gang leader first.